So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ed Miliband on the stage.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for that incredibly kind reception for me. And you're back. Thank you very much. Look, he can do so many things for you, Eddie Izzard. Can I thank you for that kind reception? And can I, first of all, thank Eddie Izzard, Joan Bakewell, and Fiona Phillips for giving up their time today. Can we give them a big round of applause, because they're going to be playing a big role today. We're trying to reinvent the way politics is done, because whatever people think about this government and whatever people think about different political parties, and we have people here from all political persuasions and none, we haven't handpicked you as a Labour Party audience, we've written to thousands and thousands of people, you're the people that came forward first to be here with us today. We want to change the way politics is done. Because you know the thing that depresses me most about politics? Of course I get depressed when people say they're voting for another political party when I knock on doors. You wouldn't expect anything else. But I actually get more depressed when people say, you're all the same, it won't make any difference who you vote for. Many of you may think that, lots of people you know will think that. Now, one of the reasons for that is I think the distance between politicians and people. And we've got to close that distance. And we've got to find ways in which we have genuine interaction. And it's hard, but what me and the rest of the shadow cabinet and the front bench spokespeople we have here today are trying to do is to find a way of having genuine interaction with you. Now, we do that as constituency MPs a lot of the time, and we do that in the course of our work, but we want to do more of it, and that's what this event is about. So it's going to be about you today's sessions indeed. And I want this question and answer session to be about you as well. So you'll be pleased to hear I've put aside my 45-minute speech. I'm going to give you a short, boring speech, not a long, boring speech. And I'm just going to speak for about 5 minutes or so, and then I want to get into questions with you and to hear from you. And Fiona and Eddie and Joan are going to be helping to field your questions. Let me just say what I think the big challenges facing Britain are, because that's what today has to be about. There are three big challenges, and the workshops today reflect that. The first is the cost of living crisis facing ordinary families in this country. You know, a few months ago, I talked about the idea of the squeezed middle. And people say, well, what does that mean, the squeezed middle? I think lots of families up and down this country know exactly what it means, because they're seeing their living standards squeezed. And you know, to be completely candid with you, it didn't start with this government, because actually our economy is good for people at the top who are doing well, but for lots and lots of other families, they're finding it a real struggle. The problem is, I think this government's making it worse, because they're cutting people's tax credits, they're putting up VAT, they're making other changes. The first thing, therefore, for my political party, the Labour Party, is to focus on how can we make a difference to the cost of living crisis facing ordinary families up and down this country. I think we need to build a different sort of economy, and that's about apprenticeships, the new jobs we create, and we also need a tax and benefit system that helps you and doesn't hold you back and is fair. And I don't think that what we see at the moment is fair. The second thing that I want to mention to you, the second big challenge that I think we face as a country, and I know there was a workshop on this morning, and I was talking to Joan Bakewell, who was at that workshop, about it, is about the next generation. It's what I call the promise of Britain. You know, the Americans have this thing they call the American dream. I think that's sort of, you know, that's a very American thing to have. I think we have something different. We have a British promise. And what is the British promise about? It's about the next generation doing better than the last. You know, my parents came here as two refugees from the Nazis. My dad before the Second World War, my mum afterwards. They came here with nothing, and they were able to build a secure life for me. That, for me, is about the promise of Britain. The next generation doing better than the last. But I think for millions of young people up and down this country, indeed many probably in this audience, they're thinking, well, am I going to get a chance to see the promise of Britain for myself? Or am I going to find I'm going to have a harder life than my parents had? A harder life in terms of getting on the housing ladder, getting a house to rent or buy, to get a good job, to go to university, and also bigger things like climate change, which are going to affect us all. And you know, there was a poll recently asking people, do you think the next generation is going to do better than the last, and only 9% of people thought they were. Now that is a terrible indictment of the direction in which our country is going, and we've got to change that. The third thing I just want to mention briefly, the third challenge that I see, is how we make sure that we preserve the institutions that we enjoy together, how we preserve our common bonds. And again, I think this is a challenge that began before this government got into power, but I think it's a real challenge being made worse. What do people care about? They care about making a living. They care about the bottom line, but they care about so much more than that. What matters to me as a person, never mind as a politician, it's my family and friends, it's the local community I live in. It's about the local high street, the local post office, but it's also about the things like the local library, the children's centre. And I know there are people here worried about their library or children's centre under threat. And it's about the National Health Service, in my view, our greatest British institution, which I fear is under threat. So they're the three challenges that I see us focusing on as a political party. But there's one other thing I want to mention to you. And it goes to when I grew up, and there are people here who are teenagers. I grew up in the 1980s. Now, I thought some of the music of the 1980s was quite good. You probably will disagree. But I thought the politics of the 1980s were rotten. I thought they were rotten because they divided our country. And I fear we are seeing our country divided again. I fear that this government is practicing the politics of division. They're saying to the bankers, well, you can have a tax cut this year and you can carry on getting your bonuses, but they're saying to everybody else, you're going to have to pay the price of the economic crisis that the bankers caused. They're saying people in the public sector and people in the private sector should somehow be at odds. People in the private sector should resent those in the public sector. They're saying people on benefits should be resented by those in work. They're saying we should set North against South. That is the politics of division, and we can't go back to that. And it's up to us, the Labour Party, to find a different politics for this country. Now, many of you will know that there is a march tomorrow and a rally that I will be speaking at in London. I think it's very interesting to hear who is going on that march and that rally. Because there are a lady over there and a lady over there. There are nurses, midwives from Kingston, worried about what's happening to the services there. There are people from Hampshire worried about their Sure Start Children's Centre. There are small businesses from Liverpool saying, look what's happening to small business in Liverpool as a result of the cuts being made. And there are police patrolling the march, but there are policemen and women off duty on that march as well, worried about what's happening to their communities and policing in their communities. These aren't the voices of people marginal to our country. These are the voices of the mainstream majority in our country. And that's why I'll be addressing the rally tomorrow. And then, what is the duty of my party? The duty of my party is to stand up for that mainstream majority and to say, yes, we do need to cut the deficit, of course we do, but it is the worst of short-termism, not long-termism, but short-termism, to do so and create a cost of living crisis for lower and middle-income families. It's the worst of short-termism to betray the prospects of the next generation and the promise of Britain. It's the worst of short-termism to destroy the things that people value in our communities, and we've got to change it. So that's why I'm here today. I'm really grateful to you for being here, and I look forward to a dialogue over the next hour and a quarter or so. Thank you very much.